and honesty. Those are the only two qualities we seek in a company when we have to spend our hard-earned money for service, air conditioning and plumbing service especially. I'm Sean Clinch, the host of Stories Inside the Man Cave podcast, and the fine American gentlemen at Honest AC and Plumbing, well, they fit that mold. It's in their name. Veteran-owned, and they are truly locally owned. Give the team of Honest a call on the number on your screen. Honest AC and Plumbing, where a handshake still means something.
Wake your ass up
or take a damn nap.
And we're the three best friends that anybody could have.
It's time.
Sean, you were twerking. That's going to happen.
Murph, don't be a dick all your life.
It's one of the more fun podcasts I've ever done.
Hey, I tell you what, if you're not talking about sports in the man cave, I bet not say you got a bed.
That's it.
In this sport, and especially in life, your life is going to be determined by how you handle failure.
Does that sound like you? That's obviously your son. Did he learn that from you? You learn through failures more than successes.
I think, we've had a lot of conversations, and I think we've talked about this, that, some early on dad didn't know much, early on dad's not very smart, but in the last couple of years, those conversations we had about how you're going to fail and how tough, being a freshman at UT was going to be, how it was going to get better, but you had to put the work in. And I think Brock listened to that. He may not have acknowledged it at the time, but, he has really gone through a lot of, adversity and tough times, but also, just working through competing against the best and doing what he can to contribute. But it's, that's really the key, is what you do when you don't succeed is how they judge, in the end.
100%. And so this Ed Cunningham, he has a lot of titles on his resume and his life achievements, and we're just going to call him Brock's dad here for episode 242. He has a great family, wonderful family, and Brock Cunningham, who is trying to fulfill or create the record for the number of years playing in UT's basketball program, but it's not for a lack of not wanting to do anything else. We're in a unique time frame. COVID, injuries, whatnot, but Brock is kind of the heart and soul of that program. And before we move forward, you saw the ad, Honest AC and Plumbing, kind of North Austin, all the northern suburbs. They're old school. They really take pride in that handshake, but more importantly, handshake agreement, the quality of work that they do for both plumbing and AC work, which we're starting to approach that need for AC again. But you got to get that maintenance. You can't just flip a switch on and expect it to work every time. But trust me, I've been there, Ed. Before we go into Ed's story, and we're going to talk a lot about Brock, but I jokingly call him the pride of Fritch, Texas. It's way up there in the panhandle. Before you became a Texas Longhorn, you were you had to have been one of the tallest ever in Fritch, Texas. Is that accurate?
It's funny that I was the tallest player at Fritch, not the tallest ever, but I was never the tallest guy in our district. We played 2A. I felt like, people always ask me, they go, you must have been really nervous when you were in the NFL or college. I was always nervous, most nervous whenever I was playing in Fritch, because everyone I knew was in the stands. You play in this little town of about 1,500 people. You got everyone is there. When you're in a big stadium, you don't know many people there. There's a few people. So it's funny, the importance of those games in those small towns out in West Texas is just as important as playing in New York or playing in Austin. it's not any different. And actually, in some ways, it's more personal, playing in a small town where it means so much to that small town.
That's amazing. And for those wondering where Fritch is, it's about a half hour, or it's right outside of Amarillo near.
Yeah, it's about 40
Meredith.
miles northeast of Amarillo. And it's right between the feedlots and the refineries. So it's always got a nice odor coming through there.
And so you were you played everything in Fritch, but you could have you had your choice of where you wanted to go to play college football. You chose UT, and I want to pull up a nice photo here.
Oh no,
from your UT days. This was actually, from 1989. This was it was on the front of a Texas game program, and to show you how large of a guy Ed Cunningham was, or still is, he's in probably the best shape of his life now. But there he is on the left, the big 7'2" from 1989, and I'm not even going to go into that game against Baylor that year. I remember.
Tough. Yeah,
I don't even know how that happened. That was just one of those freak deals. But you chose to become a Longhorn to get your education. You played in the NFL, but how do you sum up your time in Austin as a Longhorn O-lineman?
I really feel like I had about as good an experience as you possibly could. There were injuries. I had my ACL and back, lots of things that you overcome if you're playing football. But, I always wanted to play, at Texas. It was never doubt. The only reason I took 2 trips, recruiting trips. One was to Stanford and one was to Texas. And the only reason I took a trip to Stanford was Texas came in and Coach Akers, they did a presentation and they already had me sold, but they said, we're the number 2 school in the country on academic and athletics. I said, well, who's number 1? They said, well, Stanford. And so Texas left, and I got all my tapes and sent them out to Jack Elway, who was the head coach at Stanford.
Oh, my God.
And so it's the only reason I didn't know, grew up in a little town. To me, Texas was as big as it got. I mean, out there, we had Texas Tech and, West Texas, A&M back then. I guess it's West Texas. It was West Texas University back then. Now it's West Texas.
Correct.
Texas was, it might have been, it might as well have been on Mars. It seemed so far away and so, just important. It just seemed like the greatest thing ever. And I can remember I got on campus and back then we don't get all the gear like they do now. Like Brock has closets full of gear, but they gave me a pair of shoes that were burnt orange, like had the burnt orange stripe. But they're football cleats, but I wore them to class. I was so proud that I had my football. I was just walking across campus just because I want to wear something with UT. But, I think, and I had a great experience. I wish you always wish you'd have won more games, but,
right.
I was lucky to, go from, this is how bad I was when I started. I've told you this before, but I was sure Texas had made the greatest recruiting mistake in the history of Texas football when I got there, because I was truly awful. And, the thing you realize when you get to college is no one needs to tell you, because you get to watch film every day and see how bad you are. But, at Texas, I got most improved 3 years in a row. And then my last year, I was an All-American MVP. So I'm going to say it was a climb from really being awful to being a good player. So, but a lot of that's just, kind of buying into the Texas, system and working hard. Kind of the same thing Brock has found is, he always wanted to be a Longhorn just like I did. I was telling you that, the day he committed to Texas, he asked me that morning, he said, when would you have committed to Texas if they'd offered you? And I said, I don't know, 5th or 6th grade. And he goes, yeah, me too. So it was like, he always wanted to be a Longhorn. So in a lot of ways, we were the same way. We just, it just meant a lot to, I think, both of us to be at Texas. And
right.
It's just, I think for me, because he grew up in Austin, he was around a lot of athletes that had played there, just like Ellinger Sam Ellinger were really good friends. Lots of players that he knew, but I didn't know a D1 player until I took a recruiting trip. I'd never met a D1 player growing up. I mean, it was just so far away and Fritch is still, I don't think, had another D1 player come out. There's plenty of players that have come out of the panhandle, but Fritch is not really a hotbed of D1 talent. But it's so I think for Brock, it seemed much easier to get there, maybe from a perspective of he was more aware of it. But for me, it just seemed just almost an impossible dream to be at Texas.
So your last year was 1990, correct? The Shock the Nation tour?
No, 89 was my last. So
okay.
90 was that was like Dronette, a bunch of Peter's freshman year was my senior year.
Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to I remember more about those years than I do currently. I don't understand. It's the weirdest thing. So you spent some time in the league, and then you went to Texas Tech for law school, correct?
Yep,
and
I did.
Then it's just like I want to tie this all together: lawyer, to entrepreneur, and politics. I mean, it's kind of like saying, I want to do this. These are my dreams. This is how I'm going to make it happen. I want to take a chance. Mm-hmm. And I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like Brock has kind of mirrored that, so to speak, because even as a college student, he's not allowing any type of hurdle or anything to get in his way because he's trying to be the best at what he is doing currently.
Yeah. I think, he's much better than I ever was. And a lot of it was, the problem I had was, we did two things. We went to school and we played football. There wasn't much else, but that's one of the things I hope that I was able to guide Brock. And I think I said, if I had to do one thing over, I would be more active outside of sports. And so, he's been really involved in the Spurs. He's been, he marches in like the LGBTQ parade, the pride parades. He does, all the different, lots of different kinds. Like he'll on June 19th, he'll march even before, it became cool for the athletes to do it. He was doing it. But he's a very, active, he goes to all the baseball games, goes to volleyball games. He really supports a lot of things on campus. And, but he also does really well academically. He's now getting his graduate degree in advertising.
Beautiful.
And for him, it's, he works really hard. That's the thing is, I think that's kind of both of us, neither one of us were blessed with a lot of great natural talent. But, he has a work ethic where he's going to outwork everybody. He's going to get every loose ball. He's going to dive. He's going to bang in there. Sometimes I feel like he looks like a rag doll out there where there's these 6'11", 7 foot, 260-pound guys. And, Brock's just he's got a plan and he knows what he's doing and he does it really effectively. But it looks like such a mismatch. As a parent, it's kind of like watching your kid get hit by a car or something. Like that guy's so big, hitting Brock and pushing him. And I'm like, you just kind of, it's just kind of hard to imagine that he can do it. But sometimes he's giving up 50 or 60 pounds out there, just battling and winning. It's he's a remarkable player. And then if you watch him, you watch him right out on the court, guys are 360 tomahawk dunking and Brock's doing his layups, he's just out there, doing, but he knows where to be and he knows he's smart, he's tough. And that's really what, his role is. He serves a leadership role there and that's a lot of it. He plays a lot of minutes, but he's also there to, be a coach on the court too.
And it's not like that just happened. I mean, it dates back before those great days at Westlake. Now, he goes to Texas. Shaka recruited him, and then in comes Chris Beard. And the one, this is what I love. I mean, he was given a certain title, and I love it. And the student body has embraced it. Chris Beard comes in, and I feel like they are one and the same, meaning same attitude, but you're not just Brock's father. You're the father of UT's glue guy. I mean, how about that little set slogan? I mean, you kind of alluded to it. He's on everyone. For a lack of better words, he plays defense. He's like stink on shit. And I mean, he really takes pride in a part of a game that not many of this modern era do.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think, the Big 12 championship game is a good example. Like everybody remembers the dunks, and all the, like Morris had an amazing one-hand dunk. Bishop. But, you look down at the stat sheet and Brock leads the team in rebounds. He's tied for the lead in assists. He leads the team in steals. And, and he's got the most three-point shots in the championship. But, that's kind of, but there might be another game where he needs to hit more points or he needs –
yeah.
But you kind of don't – and that's kind of always been the thing with Brock is it doesn't seem like he's doing a lot. Like people are like – and then you look down the stat and he's got – he had 5 offensive rebounds in the Big 12 championship game. That's 5 extra possessions. You're –
easily.
And that's 5 you take away from them and 5 that you give yourself. And those offensive rebounds are so valuable. And it's the little things that I think guys that watch basketball, and that's like when Chris Beard came in, I think he knew. So good example, like, Brock didn't play much, he's always been a guy that comes off the bench. Well, Beard in every year the coaches vote for all Big 12. Well, it was Brock's sophomore year would have been, I think, when we played them up there. Brock had a great game against them. But, look down at the coaching ballot, and Beard had voted Brock first team all Big 12. Like Brock didn't get any other points, period, from any other coaches. But he got first team from Beard. And, Coach Beard and Brock have always had that, bond. And, even when, they asked him, I remember before the Tech game, they said, are there any players at Texas, that you consider, good? And he goes, well, if Brock Cunningham has a twin brother or cousin that plays like him, please give him my number. And it's funny. I've got one of my cousins is a coach up in the Lubbock area, and they go to the coaching clinics. And he said that he went to the Tech coaching clinic, and they showed a video, and they said, this is a cut up of what we believe a basketball player should do. This is exactly, the kind of player you want your guys to be. And it was all a cut up of Brock. That's when Beard was at Tech and Brock was at Texas. And I told Brock that, and he goes, no, he's just telling you that. He's just telling you that. Well, when Beard came to Texas, they showed him that tape that they had made for their players and for high school coaches that were just a cut up of Brock's play. So Beard always appreciated what Brock could do. And that whole coaching staff, I think, is really always had that, connection with Brock because they had a lot of respect for him at Tech.
Yeah.
And I've never heard anything. I've been around sports a long time. I promise you at Texas, we didn't do a cut up of, A&M's Roper and Wallace, their linebackers, no matter how good they were. We just didn't do it. I mean, we didn't want to give anybody that credit, but it's a lot of respect. And I think, I think the other players around the league respect Brock, and, and he's going to get his, he's rough too. He's been asked to leave a couple of games early, for maybe going a little too aggressive, but I think that's part of what he is. He's out there to battle and be the, really bring a level of toughness and speed and, just really getting after everybody. And I think you see that team now, they all kind of play like Brock now.
It does. It seems like that.
I mean, we got 9, 10 guys that are not any of them afraid of getting on the floor. They're all going after it. And I think a lot of that is that culture of whatever it takes to win. And it's been fun to watch this team because they may be 10, 15 down at times, and you really never feel like you're out of it because they're going to get every loose ball. They're going to battle. And it's been so much fun to watch these guys kind of come together as a team this year.
It's a thing of beauty, and it's unfortunate what happened. You see the pictures right there, Chris Beard and Brock in a bonding moment by one of the the pools, the fountain, wearing the jorts, and
they had the
Beard
whole team and the whole staff wore jorts for Brock's graduation party. So
I
they
think
did this
that's
whole
outstanding.
jort party. Yeah.
That's amazing. And then one bad night occurs, and everything just changed, literally. When Chris Beard was arrested and later found not guilty, or they couldn't convict him of anything that he was charged with or jailed for. And then fast forward to this week. And there at the picture on the right, Ole Miss hires Chris Beard because Texas had fired him. And I understood because of what the contract said, but it's good to see that he's rebounded and a good job, SEC job. But you being a player's parent who is you and Brock very close, you and your wife and the family. I mean, when you see somebody like that, who's actually honestly was a big part of Brock's life.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm sure you felt that was a gut punch to a lot of people.
Yeah, I think it was really shocking. And, you and I have both been around long enough to know that things happen and, it's not always going to work out the way you want. And I think Brock, Brock realized really quickly, and he loves Coach Beard, don't get me wrong, but he told me right after it happened, he goes, I know they're going to fire Coach Beard because he understands UT. And I think he was much quicker because there really wasn't a choice for, President Hartzell or Chris Del Conte in the sense that, politically they didn't have a choice, no matter how much they love Coach Beard and Brock. They sat down with the team and said, "Look, we got to move forward. We got to give Coach Terry our full support." And Coach Beard would want that too. I mean, Coach Beard he put that team together, and he wants to see him succeed. I mean, it's a reflection of him. Wherever when they have things he's put in place, and really the coaching staff and to his credit, he put an amazing coaching staff together that was able to keep that together and keep going, and a lot of head coaching experience on there. And I don't know anybody that doesn't wish, Chris Beard, that knows him the best. I mean, he's been a good mentor to a lot of young men, and he's done a great job. And, everybody deserves a second chance, and Ole Miss is a great second chance for him. I mean, he's playing the SEC, and I know Chris would want to be at Texas. He's a Longhorn, and truth is, every coach wants to be at Texas. I don't know why anybody wouldn't want to be at Texas. The only one, nobody leaves Texas willingly. Have you ever known a coach to ever leave Texas willingly? Like, I
haven't met him yet.
There's a reason that nobody leaves Texas, because it's a great place. And it's what it is, and you move on, and they're going to do the best they can. And I think, unless they, I think they can go all the way. But if they go all the way, there's probably going to be some doubt. What would it have been like with Chris Beard? There's always that discussion. And the truth is, this is the highest end of year ranking they've ever had at number 5. They've won, there's only been, I don't know, there may be 3 Big 12 championships in Texas history. I think maybe 3. You have to check on that. They've had, Brock's got, I mean, I'm not saying before Brock, so there's 5, 6. Brock in that group has 2 of them. I mean, they've had a big, chunk of success here. Now they just got to do it in the tournament.
Great time of year. Texas not only beats Kansas pounds them. Your son and the Longhorns beat Kansas by 20 points in the Big 12 tournament championship game. Some say it didn't matter to Kansas. Some say there's an asterisk. but due to Bill Self being ill, well, there's a big asterisk, I guess you could say, if that's the case, next to Texas, because they didn't have their head coach, which leads me, well, I forgot to add that Brock and the Horns did beat Kansas twice in 8 days.
Yeah.
And they were not, both of them, not close. So I just wanted to put out facts, not to be a pro Texas guy. I'm just putting out facts there. And that Texas is really riding a hot streak. And Rodney Terry, it kind of created this little hashtag win for RT that would embody what this team has done. Before I get your response on the man that he is and what he's meant to your son, I mean, I really do think that what we're about to see post that Kansas win in Kansas City kind of sums it up.
It's not us. I mean, we're playing the game, but our preparation comes from him. So everything is RT.
Is his appreciation for every day. You know, you could be coming off a bad loss or a great win, but he's still going to appreciate the day and have a good attitude going into that day, and that's huge.
Really tried to dedicate this season to my dad. I lost my dad in August, and he would be really excited right now.
So, Ed, you know him much better than most, and I got a feeling that Brock, he's one of Brock's favorites, I would imagine. But for him the man he is, his faith, the way he talks about living in the moment and then sharing his emotions. I mean, how do you sum up a guy like that? And I'm not asking you to make a decision or express your opinion, but I just don't see how Texas can't at least give him a 2 or 3 year a 3-year contract to be the next head coach.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I know. I want what Brock wants, and he really likes playing for Coach Terry, and I think it's so far beyond really Brock's control. So he has to do what he can do, but it's hard, when a coach, and like I said, Coach Terry is a great guy. He's a great coach. And you can see how the guys have responded to him. I mean, this team has gotten better and better all throughout the year, and they compete. This team, when you talk, you see all the commentators talk about what great defense they have, but a lot of that is just they play hard, they play tough, and there are a lot of talented guys. But Coach Terry's gotten not only the guys like Brock who are always going to go after loose ball, always going to. He's gotten the guys who are NBA talent to go dive for loose balls, to battle inside, to play hard defense. And that's hard to do, to get, 10 guys, 10 guys, 9 guys play a lot on that team, to all kind of buy into that, and to have a guy like Jabari Rice who could start for any other team to come off the bench and be happy. And, doesn't matter where they are, they're all cheering for each other and happy for the success. And a lot of that is having an older group of guys. But, obviously for Brock, I would love to see Coach Terry, be there. And I mean, I think he's done a great job. And I think, he knows he's got to make a run in the tournament for that to happen. I think, but we all know how Texas is. You're going to win or you're going to be gone. That's the way it is. I mean, it's
plain and simple.
There's no friendships. Think about Mac Brown. Mac Brown, who doesn't like Mac Brown? But at some point, it's just the way it is. You got, Texas is big business, and it's college sports, but it's also the top of the top. It's the top of the pyramid on what is college sports, and so you have to be successful. And probably Coach Terry's chances, his contract to play tied to how they do in the tournament. That's just the backs.
I would say at least second weekend to guarantee the job. I won't put 100%. So now it's the Cunningham family March Madness. It's about, I know it started in Kansas City, but here's a couple of photos.
Mm-hmm.
you and your lovely wife and Brock it looks like Kansas City. And then on the right, KJ Adams, his former teammate at Westlake.
Oh, yeah.
That's a pretty special moment. And it just kind of shows the family piece of this with the Cunninghams. And then I'm assuming, when do you guys leave for Des Moines, where you're the Texas first round matchup?
We go up Thursday, and they'll play on Thursday night, and then we come back hopefully Sunday. But we play Colgate, and then could have A&M or Penn State on that second game. But yeah, I was going to go back to the KJ Adams. After we beat Kansas by 20, this picture was taken after Kansas beat us in Lawrence. But after, they were going through celebration and everything, and Brock and KJ had already, talked to each other. But KJ walked all the way through all the Texas people that were celebrating and comes over and gives my wife and I a hug, gives me a hug. And, that's kind of what a great kids, you think about these kids coming out of Westlake and these great, but KJ, he's been, he was really close friends with our middle son. And so it's almost like Brock's little brother. He's been around for so long. KJ just, they'd be at KJ's house or KJ'd be at our house. It was always so. It's great to see these guys kind of continue that bond and and continue on from that. And really, it was before Westlake. Brock's been close to KJ since KJ was, a little, like they were tiny together, our middle son. So, but, we have a lot of, like we were in the Kansas section because we had tickets and we're all around Kansas, and KJ comes out and my wife, we're screaming, "Go KJ." And they looked at us, she's got her number 30 jersey on and I'm in all burnt orange. They're like, "Hold on, you're cheering for Kansas? Like, what's going on?" And so we explained to him, but you could kind of see the shock, that we were cheering for KJ. And I wanted KJ to have 30, but I still want to beat him by 30. I want KJ to have a great game, but I want to beat Kansas. But I always cheer for KJ to do well.
That Fog Howland Fieldhouse or Moody Center?
I think Moody Center. I mean, as a fan, Moody Center is so much nicer. Fog Allen is
oh my God,
like sitting in the Fritch bleachers. It's Fritch. At least we had some seat backs in Fritch. It's brutally uncomfortable there, but it's just deafening loud. They love it, and it's built for basketball. Whereas the Moody Center, it's built to have multiple events, but there's only one thing you do in the Fog. It's pretty much basketball, but those bleachers are straight up. But I don't know how people sit in those. I get so I'm kind of spoiled with Moody Center. It's so nice, but I got to say Moody Center every day because I'm a Longhorn, but. Iowa State is way underrated too. Now that arena, it gets loud.
Hilton.
Yeah, it's crazy. And that one, I'd say those two are probably the loudest. Tech is really loud. And I think that's why kids come to play in the Big 12. It's like the SEC in football.
Yeah.
There's no empty seats when you're going through the Big 12. It's just packed. And at least wherever we play, it's always packed. Maybe but when Texas comes in, there's not an empty seat in any arena. And that's kind of the way it is in football too. Everyone wants to beat Texas, and but the Big 12 is definitely, the place to play if you're playing college basketball right now.
Yeah, and it could have had up to 8 programs in the NCAA tournament, and that's what
I believe that OU, you could take OU as the worst team in our conference. And I'd say that I think they go to the Pac-12 and they win the Pac-12.
Hands down. No doubt about it.
And and we'll see in the tournament. Maybe we'll see how Big 12 teams are doing. But my brackets have a Sweet 16 full of Big 12 teams. But
as it should.
Yeah.
So. Don't forget that what Oklahoma did in the Big 12 SEC Challenge, what Oklahoma did to Alabama.
Yeah. You're right to beat them by 30 points. And that's the thing, when we go out of conference, the Big 12 dominates. And they talk about quad one wins. I mean, the top three teams quad one: Kansas, Texas, and Baylor. And I wouldn't. If you gave me a choice of all the teams out there, Kansas and Baylor would be mine. I'd take anybody in the field and take Kansas and Baylor last, because those, we may have beat them by 20, but we had a great game. They didn't have. I mean, we're talking about a program where every guy they got on the court can beat you. You can't worry about, 2 guys, 3 guys. You got to worry about 5 guys on the court every play. And so there's just no easy games. I mean, and that's the thing. It's just, and you take it all the way down, Kansas State, Iowa State, they all can beat you. They can beat anybody any day. But I mean, nobody wants to see Baylor, Kansas, or Texas in this run. I guarantee you that.
No, that's the absolute truth. And I'll be honest with you, I wouldn't want to see Iowa State. I don't want to see Kansas State.
Yeah,
it's going to be a lot of fun, this March Madness. So there is that potential. This is a nice little segue. There's a potential that A&M and Texas. I think I told somebody that the selection committee has a sense of humor. They're going to force A&M and Texas to play somehow, some way. If Texas wins against Colgate and if A&M beats Penn State, it'll happen. So, as up in Des Moines, Iowa. So, as Ed Cunningham's Man Cave Story, sponsored by our guy Jim Saxton, State Farm Insurance Agency. What's your favorite story? Your favorite Aggie story from playing the Aggies during your playing days as a UT lineman?
They were really good when we were there. Now they were
absolutely they were.
They were buying every player in the country, but look, I didn't realize it until I got to the NFL, and we're setting. I'm gonna tell you this because this is true. When I was playing in the 80s, there was a lot of that going on, but I didn't realize how bad it was because, when I was a sophomore, a team, I won't mention this team, but they sent me a custom pair of boots when I was in high school with my name on it and, their logo. And my dad, who was superintendent of schools, brought them in and he goes, hey, the school, you can probably figure out who it is, but sent you a pair of custom boots. And he goes, you can keep them. He goes, you'll just be ineligible for the next 3 years. So and he was just by the book. He was like, we're not doing this. So we didn't see much of that whenever I was going through it. But there was a lineman that played at A&M that we ended up together in Cleveland. And we're sitting around the table with a guy from Miami, a guy from Notre Dame. They're like, well, what'd y'all get paid at Texas? I was like, you didn't get paid anything. I go, now I get them not paying me, but they didn't pay Eric Metcalf. He had like 2 shirts. If you pay someone, pay Eric Metcalf. And I go, the guy had like a transistor radio in his room. I mean, the guy would just, but so he was an old lineman. He told me, he said, he goes, I always wanted to go to Texas. He goes, my dream was to play at Texas. And he said he took a recruiting trip to Texas and Texas didn't offer him any money. And he goes, well, I just assumed they didn't want me because they didn't offer me anything. And he goes, now I get it. He goes, he was a 6th round pick in the NFL. And he told me, he goes, when I got to the NFL, it was like taking a pay cut. He goes, at A&M, I had all the cash I wanted whenever I wanted. He goes, I had a new car every year and I didn't have to pay rent and I didn't have to pay taxes. And he goes, I get to the NFL, all of a sudden I got taxes. He goes, I got to pay my own rent and I got to buy my own car. He goes, I was broke. He goes, rich to be,
wow.
And so, and I'll tell you, that's just, and that same story was across a lot of teams back then. But the one thing about Texas is Texas never, I never saw that. And I think as a player who played there, 5 years and was captain, I would have known, there's no real secrets on the team. And so, so when we went to play A&M, it was rough. I'd look out there and there was 11 parade All-Americans looking back at us typically. Because they're best, team money could buy. So you could tell how much I like the Aggies. But probably my best story was, that was my senior year was the year we got in the big fight at midfield. And it really, what happened is I came out, they came, you know how they do that thing where they like do their chants or whatever, that stuff that
They come
boost.
out toward the bench, the visitor.
Toward our bench. And I was out there for the captains, and they got way close. They were almost on the hash, and I saw some of our young guys. They were kind of getting a little skittish, and so I just kind of went up and down the line, giving them the hook 'em horns, kind of really close to them, kind of hitting, bumping a few of them, kind of pushing them back a little bit, but not trying to fight. Well, Shane Dronette comes out, and Shane thinks I'm out there to fight, but I'm really just kind of showing our young guys it's not a big deal. These guys are a bunch of, idiot Aggies. But Dronette comes out, and he's ready to go. Shane Dronette was a Golden Gloves boxer.
Was a beast.
Tough guy, but he's a freshman. And so he comes running out, and Matt McCall and Dronette, Matt McCall was playing for A&M. And I was kind of all the way down the line, all by myself. It's like 100 of them and one of me. But Dronette comes out thinking it's on, and Dronette just takes a swing at McCall, and all of a sudden everybody goes off. Well, it was like a no man's land in between. Like, you're grabbing a guy, and if they got on your side, it was over. Like you were kicking the dog out of them. And so it was like this, you're trying to stay out of their side. So they're like, you remember old Red Rover?
Yeah.
Like you're right next to you, and everyone's throwing punches. Some guys didn't have their helmets, which was crazy. And so some guys are getting hit hard. Like we had a couple of guys, I don't know why they didn't have their helmet on, but there's a video of this whole fight because actually a news station from Amarillo was following me my last game, and they took me from the locker room all the way out. So there's a video. What is his name? Kevin Long. Kevin Long took this video, and he still has it, he tells me. But it is a crazy fight because you got 125 of them, 85 of us, and it is just a free-for-all before the game. And like the refs can't break it up, coaches can't break it up. This thing goes on for 3 or 4 minutes. That's a long fight, 3 or 4 minutes.
That's a long time to be doing anything.
Well, and the thing is there's some guys really getting beat up because they were pulled over to the other side, so on both sides. But it's like today that would have gotten guys suspended. Back then we just played the game. No one ever said anything about it afterwards. We have the game, and like no one ever even I think about fights today. It's such a big deal, but back then you got in a fight. It just wasn't a huge. You fought in practice just because you get bored. You just start fighting because you're sick of each other and you're tired and you're worn out. And now you got to have a team meeting to talk about that. But but now but it was funny. We should have beaten my senior year. It still bugs me to this day. But that was probably the most fun we had against A&M was just dragging their guys and whipping the crap out of them, a few of them. But A&M has always been the one. To me, OU is kind of a gentleman's rivalry. I cheer for OU whenever when they're not playing Texas, when they're playing outside the conference or whatever. But my best day is when Texas wins and A&M loses. I don't have any. There's no. If A&M never won another game in another sport, I'd be happy. That's how. OU, it's funny. I do cheer for them. I do. I'd like to see OU, do well, but not A&M. It's just the way it is. They're just don't like them. But I think the great rivalries we have in basketball will be we have Kansas now. Baylor. Those are the Big 12 does have the best of the best rivalries in basketball.
Correct.
There's a reason that the Big 12 championship set records for, this last one for championship, tournament TV ratings, because everybody knows it's the best of the best. It's like watching the SEC in football. But I do believe we'll rekindle that with, Kentucky and Arkansas and Alabama. And we'll have those rivalries, and hopefully we'll keep playing Kansas, which I think that's a great, I think playing Kansas is good for both programs. Baylor too. I mean, I'll say this in the Big 12, we've been to every arena, and we are treated except for one school, we're treated great. I mean, it's unbelievable. Like, I have had so many great experiences in every arena. And a lot of times my 90-year-old mother's with us. And so, you know, she's got to deal with this too. You know, it's not just us going through here. You know, it's my mom and our family. And you know, the people at Baylor are so nice. The people in Kansas are so good. You know, OU, you know, we beat OU on the last second of a game that just crushed their season. You know, I think when Brock was a sophomore, forget what there was. And the first thing these fans and the people said, we're trying to help my mom get to the elevator. You know, they weren't, you know, like they're soothing. They're like, hey, how can we help you? You know, because she has trouble getting, like, and they're just the nicest people, except Texas Tech. Texas Tech is just the worst place. Like, their students are out of control. Their fans are just, you know, like they're yelling at you after the game. They're coming up in your face, and I mean, like adults and not just the kids. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I would rather we don't schedule Tech again. But I mean, I think this year was unsafe for the players, and I think they don't have enough security. You know, those students are out of control. They're on the court. There's going to be an issue at Tech at some point. And in my opinion, we should never schedule them in football, basketball, or anything, because they don't have control of their fans and their students. And I mean, we had to be let out with security. The parents did. And, you know, I mean, was I worried? No, but we had a lot of people that were really concerned because these students are crowding you, yelling obscenities and, you know, just going nuts. Yeah. And, you know, our fans don't do that. I mean, you know, first of all, we don't storm the court because we expect to beat you. You know, it's not like we just don't do that. But
they've been doing it a lot this year.
Yeah, and I'd say that's the one thing I'd take away. The Big 12 has been a great experience as far as the fans and the arenas, except for Texas Tech. You know, just horrible.
I can't believe it. So I've been to Lubbock when I was covering OU and OSU. I've been to Lubbock several times, two of which they stormed the field.
Yeah.
And I've seen it now 3 or 4 times in basketball from afar that they stormed the court. And, you know, in this past year, they stormed the field after they beat Texas. But I will say, although intimidating environment for both basketball and football, I can speak to footballs. At night, you don't want to be a visiting team there.
No.
They are. It's almost like the students, I don't know. These fans are kind of uncivilized at times. It's
you know, there's a big difference between cheering. Like, you go to Kansas, or I'm saying in basketball, it's deafening, and they are going to cheer, and it's impossible to hear yourself think, and they're going to taunt you. They're going to have all sorts of, same thing with Iowa State. Like, they got after Tyrese Hunter unmercifully this year.
I bet they did.
You know, but as soon as the game's over, you know, they're like, hey, how can we help y'all get, you know, they're nice before the game. Look, I don't have a problem with fans cheering and going nuts. You know, you cheer for your team, you can taunt, you can do whatever you want. But, you know, it's like, you know, the year, was it last year or the year before, that they surrounded our buses up there. The players going in practice, you know, before it, you know, at every game they go in and practice in the arena.
Yeah.
Well, Tech had let the time out that when Texas was going to be there, and all their fans were circling the buses. And so, you know, Brock, a lot of the, you know, guys were nervous. You know, like several thousand fans are surrounding the buses.
Chris Beard's return, right?
Yeah. Was it? Yeah, I think you're right. But, you know, yeah, you're right. It was the first time Beard returned. You know, Brock gets off the bus and goes around, you know, horns up all the way around. And they hate Brock. Like, the chance they have on Brock up there, it's relentless. But, you know, Brock was like, kind of like I would at A&M. Like, you know, you think we're afraid of you guys? We're not worried about you guys, you know. But, you know, that was a situation that could have gotten out of hand, you know. Yeah. And it's and that's what you ask for when you start putting a bunch of drunk kids that are out of control on the court with some student athletes that are just trying to get off the court or trying to, you end up in a position where you're asking for trouble, and that's and Tech is the only place that doesn't have control of their fans, and they don't have control of their students, and they're not trying to. Their security is weak. I worked for companies that I've represented companies that handle like AEG and Clear Channel and Live Nation, and you have to have a certain amount of security, not only for the safety of everybody, and they don't have that. And so I'm just talking to you, like I talk to anybody that wants to hit. Tech is a place that we need to never go back to, because they need a lot of help getting their fans and their facilities under control. So, because it's dangerous.
No, I'm right there with you. But I will say they have some rather large humans who work for the Texas Department of Public Safety in Lubbock, Texas. I'm just saying, some of the largest human beings I have ever seen in my life.
Well, they need more of them, at least, for, and a lot of it's just, you can have fans celebrating with their team. You can have that.
Right,
That's
right.
It's not a problem if you're able to get the players off the court and get the opposing fans out of the arena safely. I mean, there are people running over us coming into the court, and we're just staying still. And they're people are it's unsafe for the students. So you got me on one of my tirades.
Good. Yes, I feel the same way.
And then you got me on Tech and basketball, and I'd say, it's but I've never had an experience at A&M that I felt like was unsafe from a standpoint. A&M is a school that's going to have security. They're going to take, just like most major universities, they're going to have professional security, and they're going to if you're the president of a university, you don't let that happen. It happens once, you take care of it.
It's on the other side of this break, we're going to talk a little bit about I want to get some of Ed's EC's March Madness picks, and we're going to talk about spring break from the vantage point of Sark and what he hopes doesn't happen somewhere on spring break. That's coming up on the other side of this break. For all of your insurance needs, look no further than our primary sponsor, Jim Saxton State Farm Insurance Agency. The ATX OG has been insuring Austin for over 3 decades. And get this, Jim Saxton is a Longhorn legacy. He is the son of the late, great James Saxton, who was a Heisman finalist. Be sure to give him a call, or better yet, visit his website, saxtoninsurance.com, and tell him that the stories inside the Man Cave Boys recommended you. You got one more? Well, it depends on when you're watching this. I want to say Wednesday evening's the last time, or Wednesday at 11:59 p.m. I think is the deadline. Go to ESPN.com. It's free. Join our March Madness Pick'em contest. The bracket group clinches, no apostrophe, clinches Man Cave podcast. Limit 2 entries per person. And get this, the winner receives a $100 gift certificate to Dirty's on Comeback Saloon on the old school. Anything to save that place from Project Connect here in Austin, I'm for.
Brock would love that. Brock is one of the great penny pitchers. What he asked for Christmas was gift certificates to Kirby Lane and what is the grocery store?
Central Market.
No, it's Trader Joe's. He loves Trader Joe's. Because Brock is he will not spend money on any, he is the cheapest guy you'll ever want to be. And he's like, yeah, I really like gift certificates, the Kirby Lane. And he uses them for dates, but he uses them sparingly to go to Kirby Lane on dates, I think. But
that is hilarious. Brock Cunningham. We all love the guy. He's got a little California mindset to him.
Yeah, he's
a little hippie, maybe.
It's funny. I think he's laid back. He does his own thing, but he's all Texan. Yeah, he's got a little West Texas in him too. I hate to because he's kind of he can be a country boy too. He likes to be outside. He likes to be hunting and fishing, and But he's also, pretty comfortable, at a cocktail party. He's much different than I was at that age. He knows his fashion. I mean, he's obviously got the jorts thing working. Although he did say he thought he was hanging up his jorts. He said that was to be passed. But I noticed they brought him out this year for jorts night. But he doesn't wear jorts as much as he used to. But jorts became a thing not because he meant it to. It's just because, like I said, he's kind of a penny pincher. So he uses old jeans to make shorts out of. And so he just wears his. Then it became a thing that Brock wore jorts, and it just kind of spiraled. I don't think he had any intention of it being a big deal. That it's just kind of what he wore around, to hang out. That's what he felt comfortable in. But it became this huge deal, and they have jorts night at the arena, and they had him on the Longhorn, I forget the TV show in jorts, and so it became kind of a signature of Brock was his jorts.
He's definitely a trendsetter, and how I summarize Brock Cunningham would be the guy's a utility. He is able to acclimate in any setting. He's just laid back, cool, and just one of those guys that brings some positive energy. Just cool about it.
I think he also understands. And the thing about, it's like after they won the Big 12 tournament, the first thing he did is went over and thanked the band, and he was taking pictures with the band. Those guys had come all the way up there, spending their, spring break to come to support. And I think Brock understands the, kind of the overall importance of UT, and that, the band's just as important as the guys on the court,
Right.
and it's the, the fans. And I think, and maybe that's being an older player because he's a little older than the other guys. But I think as you get older, you realize like there's a lot of other people putting time into this, not just us. And so Brock is, he's more mature than I ever was, at that age. He understands, but he's so burnt orange that, that's kind of, if I had to say what I would say, Brock's the hardest working athlete I've ever been around in 24/7. Like, he may seem laid back, but from spring when he got back on his trip until his birthday on December 13th, he hadn't taken a day off of training. He'd been in the gym or in the weight room every day. And he said on his birthday, because they just beat, I forget who it was, they just won the game, and he said, "I'm going to take tomorrow off." And so he took his birthday off, or maybe it's the day after, but he was going to take one day off, and he hadn't taken off one since. So I don't know. He gets this concept of he's kind of California laid back, but the truth is he's pretty much like he is on the court. He's going to work hard. He's strict on his diet. He spends all this time thinking about, how he can get better. I mean, it's just kind of who he is. And I think it's why he's able to play with these really world-class athletes out there when, he's a good athlete, but these are the best athletes in the world out there playing. And
speaking of world-class athletes, like the one he's defending right there in that photo.
Yeah. That guy could put up 30 on anybody. I mean, fortunately, I think he's lost his eligibility's up.
Eligibility was done before it even began.
Yeah.
This was a fun when we what was it? He's back in high school. I want to say 2017, something like that. That was good time. My story on his shot blocking ability, and that was hilarious. He's 3.5 feet taller than me, so
I bet you've got a picture. I don't know how many guys you cut. I mean, nobody's probably covered more guys in this area than you have. So you probably got one with everybody. You could probably do a podcast with nearly half the March Madness and have a picture of you with one of them.
Oh, that'd be fun. Man, I'm so glad that you guys were a part of that ride and we're still connected. Ed, I got to ask before we wrap it up. You and I both, we love sports, period. But I think the March Madness is so much fun because of the potential that it allows every team, big or small, the small schools, opportunities. As far as the Cinderellas, and I kind of picked out a few because it's usually the 4-13, 5-12. Would you agree with this list of Cinderella potential? And if you were to pick any of them, or did you pick any of them in your brackets if you submitted a bracket?
Yeah, Kennesaw State is one that I had going. Yeah, I have 3 brackets, all of them with Texas winning, obviously. And that's my kids used to ask me, they, even years and years, they go, "Why do you always pick Texas to win every bracket?" I said, "Because I can't cheer against Texas." And they're like, "But like when Texas wasn't that great, they'd be like, 'But you're going to lose.' I go, 'I can't. It doesn't matter. In my opinion, we have to take Texas every year.'" So this bracket this year is no different than it has been for the past 30 years of me picking. But I have no way to. I just can't cheer against Texas in any way. But the teams that I have in this group, Kennesaw State, I have Boise State, and one of them. Other than that, Louisiana faces a pretty tough one early.
Yeah.
Who do they play fairly early? But I took them through the first round. And Kennesaw State, I have one of them. I think I have them going maybe to the Sweet 16. And it might be just because they were playing. I don't ever choose a Big Ten team. I feel like they're soft. Pac-12. I feel like both those conferences are, overrated. But those I'd take Kennesaw State if I had to go out and if I had to put money on just one of them, it'd be Kennesaw State.
I would too. I really want to go with Oral Roberts. It's crazy. They're the only university from Oklahoma in the tournament. And they've been here several times. They're a 30-win team. Okay, but I think they're matched up against Duke, who is one of the hottest teams in America right now.
Yeah, they're one of the Dukes. Duke's a young team, and but as you get further in this year, beginning of the year they would struggle because they have 3 guys I think are projected to go in the first round of the NBA draft, and but that's the way these young teams typically are. Is they're not going to do well early, but about tournament time, you got to watch out for them. Kentucky's a little like that too.
Yeah.
They could be really dangerous, or they could, shoot themselves in the foot. You don't know, but Duke. I wouldn't bet. I have Duke going the Final Four in one of mine.
Wow, that's bold, but I understand it.
Really just a lot of talent. You get that much talent, and they kind of get a little seasoned. That's my theory. But Baylor ends up in all 3 of my Final Fours. Actually, the one I have Kansas, Baylor, Texas, and who else do I have in there? Kansas, Baylor, Texas. What's that other? I can't even remember. It might have been Duke. I might have had Duke. I forget. But Baylor and Kansas. When I'm going through it, the 2 teams. Obviously, I'm going to pick Texas, but I have a hard time not picking Baylor and Kansas all the way through. When I saw the matchups, and lots because I've seen so much of them.
Seen a lot of basketball,
and and I've seen them play other school. They're just talented. Baylor's a little like Kansas, and they got those guards are brutal. If they get going, they could beat anybody. If they don't if they're just playing okay, they can beat anybody. And that's the same thing with Kansas. I mean, they're Wilson, Grady Dick. Those guys. I mean, they can make shots that no one else can make.
No, it's wild. It's going to be really fun, and it's great this time of year because we the beginning of March Madness signifies spring break. I have not had a spring break in forever, but I will be taking off St. Patty's Day. And for a coach, parent, I'm sure it's a little nerve-wracking spring break because you got to let your kids grow and explore, be adventurous, but use this. And that's pretty much what Steve Sarkisian has said to his Longhorns as they broke spring camp to go wherever it is that they go nowadays for spring break.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not always the choices and decisions you make, but the choices and decisions of the company you keep and that they're making. And so I just challenge the guys on making really good choices and decisions over the next 10 days.
So, I mean, that's good parental advice. I mean, what else do you tell kids these days at that age? You can't really say don't, but you got to hold them accountable.
You know, at least when I was at Tech, you know, spring ball was always right after spring break. So I never took spring break. So there's certain areas I have no experience in teaching our kids. Like I have to rely on my wife to explain what not to do on spring break because I never had spring break. And then like drugs, I never did it. So I feel like there's certain areas that I have I'm just not very cool in those areas. So I have to rely on people who had like a real social life. But you know, it's kind of funny. Like, I don't know that we've had any issues with spring break with our kids. You're like, my youngest son's a little like Brock. He likes off-roading and he's going this trip up in Zion. He's a senior this year. And he sent me he called me last night and said, man, how do we get a Jeep unstuck that's, you know, stuck up to the axles? And they got in the Jeep and it's unbelievable. Like it is so stuck. And I'm like, call a tow truck, you know, they're up Zion. But he goes on YouTube and finds that there's one of the YouTube guys that does this, has a YouTube channel about it's Mike's off-road recovery. And he figures out that they're in Zion and contacts the guy and they come and pull him out, but it took 2 trucks to get him out. So unfortunately it wasn't his truck that got stuck, but that's typically the kind of issues we run into. Like Brock is stuck up in the mountains, you know, camping, or they're on some icy roads, or they really haven't gone to me. I guess, you know, for what all I know, you know, like they may have done a lot of stuff I don't know, but you know, as far as I know, I haven't had really any spring break issues. But that's also, I'm sure my parents probably, you know, they're looking back going, what do we didn't know? But yeah, the truth is, you know, like you get in football, you got 125 guys there, how many it is. I know it's 85 scholarship, but you know, you put 100 plus guys in any group, there's going to be one that gets in trouble. You know, that's the thing that people forget is, you know, there's going to, you know, people are like, these kids, you know, but you take 100 kids out of college and you send them on spring break, probably 1 out of 100 is going to have an issue. You know, it's just the way it is. And so sometimes I think athletes get a bad rap because one of the guys get in trouble or whatever, but it's, you know, they're still college kids. And a lot of times, hopefully it's innocent, but you know, they're going to have some issues. So I think we put too much pressure on some of these coaches to be responsible for, you know, statistics. You just, sooner or later, you're going to have someone that's going to get in trouble. Yep.
Hey, Ben, tell me something good.
Good. If we log on to social media or over here eavesdrop on conversations, you would think that there's nothing positive day every day. But I differ, especially to you if you're a non-sports fan. Go outside, take a deep breath, especially here in Austin, Texas. Go ahead, take a deep breath, look around, feel that energy. And a lot of it's because of March Madness and the excitement. And it's people, it's hard. It's hard to work during this week because everyone's excited for those little name schools. I had one of them before. I don't know what's happened now. Stephen F. Austin pulling off, slaying giants. Slaying giants, baby.
When Underwood was there.
And Danny Casper. And he took it, but we didn't win. Man, it was unbelievable. But it really boosts the morale of people. And I think it's the little things like that society needs to embrace instead of just spewing vitriol all the time. Tell me something good, my brother.
Well, I'll tell you, you were talking about March Madness, and I'd say the thing that I have really appreciated over these past really 4.5 years is getting to know these young men who are just good people, you know, and that's, and not only young men, we've got, the volleyball team is over at our house, the women's basketball. And I cannot tell, Texas fans have to be proud of what a great group of young men and women that are representing the University of Texas. We've had them in our house. We've seen them at their best. We've seen them sometimes at at their worst, but they are just good people. And I think as an alum, as a parent, I'm really proud to have these young men and women representing the University of Texas, because you couldn't ask for better, people. They're just great people. So they're going to make mistakes in March Madness. And the truth is, there's only going to be one team that's going to be happy at the end. So, you got to realize that these guys, no one wants to win more than they do. So I'd say, be positive, realize that they're great people out there representing the university. And we're very fortunate to have the class athletes that we do and coaches. And, it makes me really happy to be part of, a little part of this process.
That's outstanding. And that's from the mouth of a guy who has been to almost every Texas basketball game, home and away, to watch a fan favorite, his son, that being Brock Cunningham, the hometown guy who's living a dream and is one of the coolest. He's cool as a cucumber, and so is his dad, man. And EC, man, this has been fun. We said 30 minutes. We filled up an hour just like that.
What they don't know is we talked probably 2 hours before we even got home.
That's the truth.
We had so much catching up to do, but the problem is we could talk another 2 hours if
easily.
If both of us weren't starving. But I think I always love telling you it's been fun. Years. I don't even know how many years we've known each other, but dude, the first time in the cave, I'm so happy to have a chance to be part of it. I appreciate you asking me.
100%, and really excited for you and your wife and the family and Brock, man. Brock's been one of our favorites as well, and we're just glad he's going to have a sixth year, and we're going to have one more season of this, and I hope we can somehow manage to end this season in Houston for you guys. Bring it back to Texas. You just need 4 wins. That's all.
Yep.
4 more wins.
And I think they got as good a chance as anybody, and that's all you can ask for. And one thing I got to ask before we leave, though, is don't forward me any of those Aggies emails, messages, or letters. Probably they don't know how to write, but I don't know how they even, if Aggies can even make complete sentences. But don't forward whatever they send you.
Hey, for the pride of Fritch, Texas, just northeast of Amarillo, that being the Ed Cunningham and the OG Man Cave boys, that being Hardball Harge, Big Mike, and Coach Mo. And I'll say it for EC here. We are out.
You see the drippy, I'm fitted up. Hop in my car and the giddy up.